Hi all, Adi here from Hans & John's. As always, thank you so much for clicking on the video. Today I'm in South Stoke, which is just a couple of miles outside of Arundel in Sussex. I'm at St Leonard's Church in South Stoke. Looks really cute, don't you think? Really small, and it's got a very unusual tower. I say unusual because of its shape. I'm not even sure if it's going to be open, but it's got a really cute graveyard. Looks like there's either a manor house or it might have been the old rectory there in the background, and there's some interesting big old yew trees. So even if the church is locked, which I'm sure it won't be because we're in such a rural area and they're usually open. But anyway, I'll do a voiceover and find out as much information as I can. So yeah, let's go. Visiting the beautiful little church of St Leonard's, South Stoke, is one of those places that feels almost hidden away in the countryside. The beautiful church sits just outside the historic town of Arundel, overlooking the River Arun in the middle of the South Downs. But despite its peaceful setting today, this church has been standing here for nearly 1,000 years. One of the first things I noticed is just how simple and peaceful the building feels. It's a very small church and it's built mostly of local flint, a material that's commonly used across Sussex. Just inside the church we come to the font. The font you see today is actually 19th century with a square bowl, and it replaced an earlier octagonal font that once stood here. And fonts are always placed near the entrance of a church because baptism was traditionally seen as the symbolic entry into the Christian life. So when you walk in, the font is often the first thing you encounter. And I love having a quick look through the visitor's book to see where people have come from. There's a lovely map of the local area and loads of details about the wildlife, which there's plenty of around here, and some local history. There was this lovely plaque. I slowed it down a little bit in case you want to pause it and read a little bit more about the piece. As we move further into the church, I'm going to show you one of the church's most unusual features, and it's the bell tower. It was added during the 13th century when the church was modified and improved, but what makes it so interesting is its shape. The tower arch is extremely tall and narrow, much more so than you'd expect in a small rural church like this. Many churches of this size simply have a small bell cot perched above the roof, but here they have a proper tower instead. And during the Victorian restoration in the 19th century, a small shingled spiralet was added on top, giving it the slightly quirky look it has today. Inside the bell tower, the alabaster memorial is of Sir Hugh Cairns, who was an eminent brain surgeon, and he lived nearby in the old rectory. Like many old buildings, St Leonard's has revealed a few surprises during restoration work over the years. I'm going to show you some pictures here, and if you want to pause and read that. So this was all found in 2002, where they discovered some old stonework and a coffin lid. I mean, discoveries like this aren't that unusual in medieval churches, and the ground and floors can hold layers of history going back hundreds of years. I apologise, I know the quality of the picture isn't very good here, but the light is reflecting off the glass, so I did the best that I could. The church here actually has no electricity, so services are still lit mainly by candles, and they had several of these beautiful iron candelabras. I would love to see this place lit up by candlelight. I bet it looks absolutely stunning. And over here is the harmonium. Beautiful. And I found a card on the top here, which I'm just going to show you if you want to pause and have a read. So it was actually installed in 1985 and it came from Connecticut. And you can see there that St. Leonard's is an 11th century church, seating capacity of 100, and the average congregation at the main service is 20. The building itself is a classic two-cell medieval church, meaning it's made up of the nave, which is here where the congregation sits, and the chancel at the end there where the altar is located. And I noticed dozens of candles that were placed all around the church, even on the window ledges, and the beautiful metal chandeliers. It must create an incredible atmosphere, especially during evening services, and I imagine it's probably not that far removed from how the church would have been lit hundreds of years ago. And here in the chancel they had, I think, one of the nicest candelabras that I have seen in a church. I've seen more fancy ones or more elaborate ones like the one in Cullerton in Devon, but I just thought this was beautiful in its simplicity. You can see some Victorian tiles here on the floor, but the chancel here is actually quite simple. And you can see some lancet windows there, which are the tall, narrow, pointed windows, which are typical of early Gothic architecture, and they would have been added to bring more light into the building. But as we look up and see the ornate wooden roof with carved timbers that add quite a bit of decoration to an otherwise modest space. Some of the timbers that we see here today may date from later repairs and restorations, but they help maintain the character of the building. What makes St. Leonard so special is just how little it has changed. Unlike many churches that were expanded or heavily rebuilt, this one has remained very small, and for centuries it served the local farming community, and much of the surrounding land belonged to estates connected with Arundel, which, if you don't know, is a huge castle. And look at this beautiful door. I am going to visit Arundel Castle sometime during the summer. But the church today is actually a Grade 1 listed building, and that means it's considered a building of exceptional historic interest. And there's a little bit there about St. Leonard, who the church is named after. And when you walk through this quiet graveyard, it's not hard to imagine the generations of people who came here for baptisms, weddings and funerals over the last 900 years. Like many old rural churchyards, it seems like a very peaceful place, with gravestones that span centuries of local history. Some of the former rectors of the parish are buried here, along with villagers who lived and worked in the surrounding countryside. The church sits in an incredibly beautiful setting, surrounded by the rolling landscape of the South Downs, and it's close to the River Arun. It's the sort of place you might stumble across while walking the countryside and suddenly realise you're standing beside a church that has been here since at least the Norman times. I spotted this beautiful headstone over here of an angel and all the beautiful snowdrops in bloom. It may be a small church, but buildings like this hold such an incredible amount of history and nearly 1,000 years of it, and it's quietly preserved in stone, wood and candlelight. And sometimes it's these tiny tucked away churches that turn out to be the most memorable. I'm going to wrap the video up here. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, if you could please like and subscribe, I really would appreciate it. And there's a hype button down there, and all that is free, doesn't cost you anything. But if you do want to support the channel further, then please do hit the buy me a coffee link down below, and if you want to donate directly to the church, then I'll also pop a link in the description below. But as always, thank you so much, and I shall see you for the next one. Might be a hunt, might be a John, who knows.